It's mainly because of its unique natural environment. The difficulty lies in two perspectives. The first one is it has high technological requirements. There are a lot of innovative elements. And second is because of the unique environment. So two elements. The first one is techniques for us to make a breakthrough, and the second one is uniqueness in its natural environment. How unique is it? It's actually one of the three greatest areas for wind to come in. Because of that, this area is usually blanketed with big winds. So the gales would constitute as one of the major natural constraints. And the second one is about the landforms and the geographical conditions, as well as the water temperature. What do you mean by geographical restraints? If you look far at the bank, you would see that those banks are mostly very open-ended and fragmented stones, and they have a certain angle. Usually those banks are eroded by the high winds. If we go underwater, you would see that there are so many similar conditions of weathering. And also, if we have to do engineering underwater, it's very difficult for the drills if the soil and stone conditions are eroded by the weather. So because of the unique water temperature, water depth, the water flow, as well as the weathering conditions like the winds, this made it very difficult for bridge building. You also mentioned about the water temperature and the water flow. In some usual bridge building conditions like Yangtze River or Yellow River, or the ocean areas with rather good and favorable conditions, what is the difference? For the Yangtze River, the flow rate of the water is about 2 meters per second. Sometimes it goes as high as 3 meters per second. But here in this strait, it's over 3 meters per second. And also we are seeing many big waves. In the Yangtze River, if you look at that pier, let's zoom in to look at the piers. You could see the orange color. That is our enclosure structure. We have a very famous enclosure structure. Compared to Yangtze River, we have so many piers and poles in the structure in order to actually undermine the wave strength. With the same size of the enclosure structure, we could carry about 200 tons of waves. And if it is a maritime condition, the strength needs to go as high as 600 tons. In addition to that, you said that we could only feel the gales when we climb up on the tower. What is the feature of the wind? Strong wind and also long time of wind blowing. What is the strength of the wind? Speaking of the wind, we have to look at it two ways. The first one is during the seasonal time from October till April the next year. Usually we would face like 6 or 7 levels of wind. Sometimes the gust could go as strong as 11 levels. From May till September each year, usually that is a golden time for construction. But during this time also it coincides with typhoon and hurricanes. We could annually welcome like 6 to 8 hurricanes per year. You said about the big winds. What is the wind requirements for such bridge construction? And also, what is the effective construction days? per year. According to the national standards, we could only carry out such construction with a wind condition of below 6 levels. So, speaking of that, every year we have only 50 effective construction days according to the national level, and we have submitted our report to the national government covering our specialties. So we have to do a lot of planning and designing work. We engage with a lot of designing entities to do such estimation of the wind conditions in order to conclude about our effective construction days. We have been communicating with a lot of experts to finalize the conditions of construction. For example, for usual works, like concerning the reinforced concrete or cement, we have to accord with the national standards. But for certain standards and requirements, like the trestle work and other work, we could have some temporary preparation. We would do some extra preparation to reinforce its security level. If offshore, we have a certain requirement about the capacity. Like the embossment, we would accommodate like 100 tons. If the national requirement is 20 tons, then we would actually surmount that level to reach as high as 50 or 70 tons. We would go above the national standard level. That's why this place is called an inclusion zone of bridge building. We need to have a very full information about the condition for our engineering work. And if you dive into the engineering, you would bump into a lot more difficulties than you have imagined. So according to your information, because of the difficulty in bridge building, based on the national standards, we have enjoyed certain preferential treatment and relief on the requirements. Then how shall we respond to those requirements in practices? Of course, we will build the bridge offshore, and there are some bridges to be connected with the bridge. You must have passed by Anmian. It's actually a cliff, and right below the cliff, it's just the ocean. Against such a severe and unfavorable environment, we have to do a lot of engineering work. By building such a platform, we would move closer to look at such a construction platform. And at the same time, we are going to introduce to our viewers about the details. If we have a bird view, this is a large water area. So how big is it? And what is the significance of such a construction platform? It's about 60,000 square meters. Could you give us a metaphor? It's about 100 acres of land. Mathematically, it's 90 to 100 acres of land. That's equivalent to about 10 football venues, 130 basketball venues. Why do we need such a big platform? To undermine the influence of the poor weather conditions and any else?
因为如果不建这个平台，这个浪涌作用来讲的话，这个施工效率会大打折扣。那么这个工期的话是会
I think it's because without such a big construction platform, when the waves hit us, our construction work would be hugely impacted, and we cannot continue such a construction. Because of the strong waves, we need a very stable platform, otherwise our work would be interrupted and we cannot build the bridge. We cannot compare this work with the construction in the base. For example, the oil rigs. The oil rigs also cannot perform under poor weather conditions. They cannot operate in those days. And for our offshore platform, it's also quite difficult. We have to consider the weather conditions. So what is the functionality of this platform? It's very big, as we can see. It's big in size, and it has a very complete function. But briefly speaking, the first functionality is production. The second one is it's a living space for our engineers. So as to production, what does it produce? It's just like the overland work. We need to have connectivity, for example, the roads, the power, and also the platform for our daily works. It also carries the functions like piling up our materials, the concrete production. You could see our warehouses. That actually, within your site, is our concrete factory. It also carries the functionality of power generation, right? In the beginning, we scheduled it to have this functionality, but later on, we have transferred the high voltage power from the land to the offshore platform. What about the water connection? We have two solutions for water connection. The first one is upon our platform, we have built such a desalination factory, and every day it could produce like 200 to 300 tons of water. Desalined water. It's drinkable. After purification, you could directly drink from this water. Why do we need this platform? Is it connected with the islands? It's independent. For the daily materials, we could ship them. Why do we need such a stable and fixed platform? I think it's because under poor weather conditions, you cannot replenish those materials simply by relying on shipping. So you cannot rely on such a shipping capacity. You have to be able to produce those materials and live upon those materials. Of course, this platform is built with hard work. You could see that this platform has been attached by many rust. We have moved a lot of columns and piers, and then we organized all of those columns and piers together. We finished the platform construction by the end of 2013. After finishing one part of the platform with the columns underpinning the platform, we heard about the news of strong gales, and after 2 days we come back and discover that all of the already placed columns have been removed by the strong winds. And also there is a factor of stealing. At this area, the water level is about 15 meters. It's very deep, so sometimes those columns could be washed away underwater. Now we are gonna live broadcast a clip about how this platform was constructed in the first place.
因为底下是一个倾斜的一个断层光板岩，光板岩。光板岩就是，就像打个比方说，我们的水磨石地板和这个土壤之间的这种区别。能不能这样打比方？就是有淤泥或者是沙子覆盖层和没有的，然后直接就是裸露的岩层。裸露的岩层，对。
We have a layer.
再一个，它水比较深。
It's exposed.
它相对搭设平台来讲就比较
And it's tilted.
水深对于我们这个钢结构，这个平台
Added by the deep water level, it's rather difficult to build the platform because the deep water level will have higher requirements for the steel structure. You said that it has 3 to 10 times more requirements than the usual water level. Yes. And also for the exposed stones, it creates more difficulties for the columns and piers to be placed. It requires a large scale of platforms and a lifting machine to put those columns in place altogether.
就是面积相当于3个篮球场这么大的，一组一组的，然后进行直接下放到水中。
And it's the size of 3 basketball venues. We group them, and with 3 groups, we level down those materials in 3 groups altogether with our lifting machine. It takes us about 1.5 years to finish this job. If it is in a bay or in a canal, usually it will take us only half a year. Then how much materials have you earmarked for this construction? How about we climb up first, and then we could introduce more information.
那个搭建这个平台，我们整个全桥长度是11.15公里。
Building this platform, as we know, the whole bridge is about 11.15 kilometers, and 7 kilometers is above water. For these 7 kilometers, they are connected by the piers, and it costs like 40,000 tons of steel, with so many materials required. Because for usual bridge, such amount of steel input could support the building of 3 to 4 bridges already, but for us, it's just 1 bridge. And for concrete, it also was supplied in high amount. If it is used in Yangtze River or Yellow River, then the same amount of materials could support 7 bridges at the same size. Are they removing the rust? Now, because there are a lot of rust, so our workers are right now removing the rust. Why are those steel structures so rusted? Because of the environment. It has high humidity, and also in the air, this place is blanketed with a high amount of chloridium. Is it painted? We have done some erosion-proof preparation, but still it's rusted. The rust is as deep as 1 millimeter. For such one section of steel, you have to do some erosion-proof preparation. Then how long does it take for the steel to be rusted? 8 months. And every year we have to do 2 rounds of removal of the rust. What are they doing? They're removing the rust and grinding the steel and then refurbishing the steel structure with erosion-proof materials. Looking at the rust, I don't dare to walk on the bridge anymore. It doesn't feel quite safe. Don't worry about that. Actually, we have another layer of steel panel on the stairs. You could see the original steel structure under the first layer, and the top layer was added because of the severe rust situation in the first layer of the steel stairs. Are the original stairs already broken? Because of the heavy rust, we have to have some backup stairs. Do we have to replace the original stairs? We have maintenance on a regular basis, but we cannot replace them altogether. But for the main corridor, we have replaced the whole stairs. I'm quite curious. With so many steel structure, sometimes the steel is in close contact with the water, and we have so many people living and working on this platform. It's such a heavy load. That's a very good point. We have a special team in place. Every month, for the surface of the bridge, or so-called the platform, we would have one round of maintenance per month. How do they go down? In particular for the steel structure underwater. We have a specific channel. They could go right down into the water, and we have some special equipment. We would have some lifting basket and a stair, a ladder. They would just climb down just like the Spider-Man. For such offshore platform, we have a team of 12 people doing such a maintenance job, and per month they must go through a very thorough checkup. For smaller scale of maintenance and recovery, we also have additional workforce. We also have some mobile teams. You could see that when the steel columns is in contact with the water, it's more severely rusted. Is it safe? We would adopt more reliable and scientific methods to remove the rust and check and examine the columns. We would use some tools to knock on the steels or just peel it off. We would adopt some specific instruments and equipment. For example, if we want to measure the depth of the columns, if it's 14 millimeters, we would try to measure and examine whether it's rusted. And then we have a specific measurement machine to check if the depth remains the same as before. For example, whether 2 millimeters belongs to the rust depth. If it ranges from 8 to 10 millimeters, then it's a reasonable range. Otherwise, we will do some cementing job or replacing job. By that you mean you need to add another layer of steel panel. Yes. Another question. Do we adopt some stainless steel? Yes. In the beginning, we haven't adopted the stainless steel, but after some time, we discovered that stainless steel is at a better place because it's stainless. But time after time, we came to realize that even stainless steel could be stained. Could you point to me which steel belongs to stainless steel? The stainless steel is usually used for the living conditions like the windows, the doors, the knobs. Could you zoom in? You could also see the rust on the lock. How long does it take for the stainless steel to be rusted? 3 to 4 months. But this lock is a new one. Let's take a step back because of the poor signal. The blue area belongs to the living space, right? We have so many steel structure on the bridge with such a heavy rusting situation. We need to guarantee firstly the safety in the living space, the bridge structure security, and also the transportation security. Firstly, I want to tell you something about the bridge. If it's rusted, then the rusted area belongs to the metals. because in the steel structure, we would adopt a lot of reinforcing steel bars. And when we are dealing with the steel bars in the offshore environment, we would firstly choose a place to build our fully closed steel bar production factory that would offer a good protection function. And after already processed the semi-finished products, we will transport such steel bars to our platform for more instant usage. If there is any rust in the steel bars, we would have some workers. You could see them. They would do the steel rust removal job. This is another pier, right? That's our model, and within this model, we have some steel bars. Yesterday evening, we had a rainfall, so there are some floating superficial rust. And for the steel panels, they're covered with water. That's actually plastics. After 1 or 2 days after rainfall, those panels would be covered by some rust. After only 1 or 2 days. And after that, our workers will deal with those panels. Is this oil or water? That's actually a release agent, a mold release agent. It's also composed of certain oil. So what do we do if the steel bars are rusted? We will ask our operators to remove the rust until the steel bars reach the level of usage. In addition, you mentioned that we also have a factory for processing. Where are those factories? And could you show us the products transferred from those factories? That one, that steel structure is transferred directly. It's about 1,500 tons in weight. And it's a finished product with complete welding process. And there is no single rivet in the structure. The advantage with no rivet is that in the future there will be no breaks. And there will be no fall-off of the rivet, because the fall-off of the rivet may drop on the vehicles passing by. That's a security hazard. And also, I see it's very clean. There is no rust. Exactly. So this structure also requires certain maintenance. Yes. According to the designing requirement, we also have done some erosion-proof methods. When we are living and working on the platform, what are the other headaches you may face? There are a lot of headaches and pains while living on the platform. I'm going to take you to the dormitory. The dorms look quite like containers. They are actually containers because we cannot build the brick structure or the other materials for our living spaces, and also because of the hurricanes and the monsoon season, we have to rely on the containers for living. What about the other structures? Why do you only adopt such container for the structure? Because for the other structure in design, they are not portable. Because if you design more complicated structure, the load would go beyond the limitation. And because of the high humidity, if you adopt the other structures, it would go moldy. And what do you usually eat? Like usual, rice. And we have 4 cooks supporting about several hundred workers. We have fewer vegetables in offering. Why? Because the green vegetables could not be stored for a long time, and we have very limited storage condition. This is one of our cooks. Hello?
信号是可能不一定近啊，因为这边屏蔽可能比较厉害。
对啊，这个就是我们的储藏室，储藏室里面有这个冰柜呀，冰箱，对，可以。
This is our storage room. You could see the refrigerator to store some proteins or meat. I could see very few vegetables. This is the cabbage. Cabbage is here because it's easier for storage, but it's turning yellow already. And it's already looking moldy. And also I see carrots, potatoes, onions. Those are easier for storage. They are the skin of tofu, but in total we have very few vegetables because of the poor storage conditions under high humidity. And tomatoes are also easier for transportation and storage. They could be kept fresh for longer time. For meat and eggs, they are in abundant amount. Where is the meat? I see dumplings. This is the meat. It's really difficult to replenish. So we usually could store as many meat or dumplings as possible. During the night shift, cooking the dumpling is a very easy choice. So the difficulty lies in the difficulty of replenishment. So we have to adopt the easier way. This is our cooking room, kitchen. You said you have 4 cooks, yes. How many people can we support? About 80 to 100, that's a stable amount. We also have some flexibility, because if we are examined by certain entities, then we need to also support those people if they stay for lunch or dinner. And how many people can we accommodate in the containers? We have about 200 rooms in the containers, but some of those containers are destroyed. Now in total we have 170 containers are available. Usually 2 or 3 workers could share 1 container, and some of the containers are used for working. In total, we could accommodate 700 workers, full loaded. How and why are those containers damaged? The weathering? Let's walk in to have a look at the containers. As to the damage, they may come from the gales. The gales would damage the original structure of the containers. And at the same time, the erosion. You said about the humidity. Yes. Because of the humidity, they need 24 hours of air conditioning in operation. That would actually remove the humidity. If they turn off the air conditioner, what will happen? Then it would have a very high humidity, and also we would see the molds. You could see the rust. I sense that the 2 white pipes are leaking because of the heavy rust on the roof. So we built another round of waterproof materials, but it's still not working. So we plug in such a PUC pipes to receive the water. It could divert the water from the roof. Almost every container is leaking. So as the last resort, we have to divert the water from inside to outside. Are some of the containers totally damaged? Yes, this one is totally damaged. You could see the rust could fall off easily.
了，这就。
对，因为这个潮气特别重，湿度特别大，这个地方湿度比较大，所以它就是不光是锈蚀的问题啊，漏水的问题。
Because of the high humidity,
漏水也会影响，所以它这个很容易发霉。
we are facing heavy leaking issue or rusty issue.
那如果说像这么潮，我们有什么？
Whose storm does it belong to? Mr. Zheng Fei? With such high humidity, what measures do we have to respond?
那如果说像这么潮，我们有什么方法来对抗它？包括像潮成什么样？你看一下。
可以。
那如果说像这么潮，我们有什么方法来对抗它？包括像潮成什么样？你看一下。
可以，看看。
像潮成什么样？
可以，看看。一般我们衣服上都会长霉点，
我就不出来，
不知道习不习惯。
比如说它什么地方容易发霉？
How damp is this? You could see our clothes. And which place is more prone to going moldy? You could see the steel panels, they are so rusted.
那我们这边可能里面信号不太好，那可能只能马上摄像师稍微站门口一点。
It's the same thing with our wardrobe.
柜子它也会吗？柜子会，它哪个地方？比如说，我们看一下，对。麻烦师傅帮我搬一下。
Which place of the wardrobe is rusted?
那看下摄像师这边能拍得到吗？对，大概在这块儿。这都是。
对，这都长霉了。而且。
Could you film this place? You could see that in the wardrobe it's going moldy. For the clothes and shoes, what happens if they go moldy? We have to open the air conditioner. And also sometimes we need the dehumidifier, but it's not working as good as the air conditioner. And sometimes even the air conditioner will go moldy. So if it's so damp, will they pose a health threat to our workers? Certainly. Initially, we thought we were in good shape, but after working here for 2 to 3 years, we could feel the decline of our body strength. And also, we may be suffering from some skin disease. For example, dermatitis. And usually, those gels we rub on our skin could not get to the root of these diseases. After we eat certain foods, we would repeat those diseases outbreak. You could see the roof is leaking. We have filling the poles on the roof. It reminds me of the great water diversion project in China from south to north. What we are doing with the pipes are actually such a diversion function. What do we do to adapt to this environment? We need to eat a lot of dried chilies. Sometimes we have to go on the land area and do some other jobs. For example, resort to the traditional Chinese medicine. For example, the cupping jars. If we are treated with the cupping jars, we may feel much better. So by that you mean our workers need to go through certain special techniques to restore their health. Yes, because on the platform it's not convenient to receive such a treatment. I remember one of our technicians one year, perhaps in December 2015, that's approaching the traditional Chinese New Year. And when he boarded on our platform, he couldn't get his way back because of the strong winds. So he had to spend his Spring Festival on the platform. That was really a hard time. 真的生活条件啊，包括这生产条件都很艰苦。那我们是如何把就是 With your introduction, I sense the difficult living conditions on the platform. How do they build those big bridges? I heard that the major tower have already been finished and capped, and now our construction highlights are about the upper structure of the bridges. What steps did we take to build such a big bridge? It's a long story, but simply put, 5 steps concerning people, machine, materials, structure. In the beginning, when we are doing the underwater engineering, that's the most difficult step. So by that you mean putting in place those piers. And also the installing, yes. The difficulty is because of the natural conditions. We have a large workload of installation. And it has a long diameter of such installation, like the main tower. The installation is about 4.5 meters in diameter. And also they have different diameters. They have different number of such columns. Usually it's about 22 to 24 piles. And here it requires 8 columns at the diameter of 4.9 meters. On our left hand, that's another factory for stirring. It could accommodate 5,000 cubic meters of cement, concrete. Usually for 200 to 300 cubic meters, we could create like over a dozen such piers. And for the piers, we could have completely finished a pier. How long does it take for such a pier construction? If the machines go uninterrupted, it takes like 4 days and 5 nights to create and produce one pier. You mentioned about the diameter of those columns. It's about 4.4 meters and 4.9 meters respectively. And what is the installed capacity? For the bridge construction, that is actually the largest in size, 4.4 and 4.9 meters. This is about 5 meters. It's like the length of a small house. It's equivalent to a house of about 16 square meters large. Now we are standing on the cross-strait highway and railway bridge. We are on the construction site. And this Pingtan bridge is also the first cross-strait highway and railway bridge in China. It's confronting huge construction difficulties, and today we are taking our viewers to see how our engineers and workers are surmounting those challenges to build such a bridge. If our viewers are looking at this clip and if you have any questions, you could leave your comments. And Mr. Liu, the local manager, will be happy to take your questions, because indeed this bridge, as Mr. Liu said, is coming into shape under a lot of difficulties. The construction itself needs to go beyond many natural limitations, and also for people living on the platform, they are also suffering from a lot of limitations and restraints. Sometimes in the gale days, even walking would be quite hard. I could just tell you that why are we living in such a difficult situation? Because in addition to the engineering work itself, the special natural conditions like long gale days, strong winds, high waves, and fast flow rate. Sometimes the waves could go as high as over 7 meters. And also the difference of the water level per day is about 7 meters. On a daily basis, the water level difference is about 5 to 6 meters for the other areas, but in our platform, the difference is about 7 meters. And when we are loading or offloading, it usually takes 2 to 3 hours or 6 hours. And during such a loading process, it needs to go through the 7 meters difference in the water level. And usually it takes like 6 hours for the ebbing and flowing. You just now mentioned about the difficulties caused by the rust and the leaking in the house and the damp condition within the containers. I could have a first-hand experience that you really are working and living in difficulties. And you talked about certain skin diseases. Because this place is offshore, on the second year, when the temperature goes lower and the wind is blowing against our face, it's rather cold. We have a young man, Mr. Song. Once, he paid visit to our construction site for the security check, and he stayed for about 1 to 2 hours on the construction site for examination. He was doing a very diligent job, and he lost track of time during the 2 hours. But when he came down from the platform, I could see the facial expression. And later on, we heard that he actually went to the hospital after coming off our platform. And we heard that he was suffering a very severe facial paralysis. The wind was about 8 level or 9 level. Because of that gust level, we need to have more frequent examination, and all of those examiners need to shoulder responsibilities. So once they have such an examination, they would take a very long time. But if they have to expose themselves to such a strong gust frequently, then usually they would have some health risks. That's why they need to do a lot of protection jobs. When we visit the northwestern China, we could see all of the workers are wearing some protection suits, sometimes heavy scarves, hats, leather hats. It could protect their face. They would only expose their 2 eyes to the wind because the operation sometimes takes a long time. And for the management team, we are at a better place. So you need very good protection, yes. Today, we are not having very strong wind. It feels quite comfortable walking here. But if they are operating at a high level on the structure, is it heavier and stronger wind? Why are we building the high towers? We have 6 such towers. Every couple of the towers would constitute as a section of the bridge. If we want to reduce the difficulty of the piers, we need to have long spans. And to realize long spans, we need to have some tilted bridges or arcs to manage such long spans. For example, this is one of the cable stayed bridge. We could accommodate 50,000 tons of ships to pass by the bridge. And the limitation of the height of the ship is about 60 meters. Usually it ranges from 54 to 56 meters. Now let's walk towards another section of the bridge. After capping, what is the next stage of the construction? Because the main towers have already been finished, as you could see the orange structure, that's a supplement structure for steel works. So for the next step, all of those concrete pile construction would need to be finished. When I was coming on my way here, Mr. Liu informed me that we hope to present the finished steel structure. Then you might be wondering, how do they transport such heavy steel structure? Because usually the steel structure is very heavy. What is the weight of the heaviest steel? It's about 1,000 tons. And on some occasions, we have 3,300 tons of the steel. That's quite large. I think it ranks number 1 in the history of cross-strait highway and railway bridge. And we have prepared a clip for our viewers to have some taste about this size. It's a huge equipment offshore to transport 3,300 tons of those piles and columns.
然后呢，也请我们导播帮我们播放一下那个第2段的插画面，就是我们边爬梯边跟大家说一下。哎，那其实它这个爬梯，这个梯子还是很陡的。对。
小魏老师慢点啊，
We are climbing up the stairs and it's very
我们这个往上还有多少的距离啊？这里？
这个往上还有20米。
还有25多少
？20米。
20米。
对，我们爬20米就到了。
啊，就是我们现在其实。
How much longer do we have to climb? It's about 20 meters.
然后，那我看我们这边好像都是用一个比较封闭的一个结构在这个。
The total height is 138 meters. It's a closed structure, yes. We hope to reduce the implications of the outside environment over this staircase. In that way, our workers would have a better condition when they are operating. Is this place wrapped up by strong winds? Yes, very strong winds. So such strong winds would be unfavorable for the safety concerns for the workers. With our technology, we could reduce 50% of the wind with this piercing. So by that it means 40% of this structure is actually composed of the piercing. In that way, you could guarantee the safety inside the structure. For example, under level 8 wind, the assembly of the steel bars could also be sustained. But without this piercing structure of the enclosed structure, we cannot continue our construction work. What is the difference of the strength of wind from this height to the ground level? It's about a difference of 2 levels of wind. Sometimes 3 levels. Be careful. It's quite hard for climbing. So now I am looking at the already capped main tower. This tower is lastly finished. And now we are standing at a height of about 158 meters. No, actually it's 200 meters.
那个158这边没差，对，差2米。通过视频里面看到的这个。
对。然后它，这个海鸥号挺了不起的，是我们的剑桥重器啊。为什么呢？因为我们海鸥号它是一个固定臂，就是固定双八杆的一个吊船，它的最大吊高可以达到130米，那么就是相当于是40多层楼房高。然后。它吊3600吨重的时候，可以吊到110米，这个目前在国内来讲是处于领先的，处于领先的。国际上也是一样的，也是一样的。我们国家的剑桥水平就基本上代表。
对，那其实就是我们刚才也是通过这样的视频，包括我们现在站在这个就是已经封顶的这个航道桥顶部，我们大家也是可以看得到哈。就是我们之前说的这个剑桥禁区啊，那现在已经是整个大桥的一个雏形已经是很明显，对吧？现在目前来讲，就是像刚刚刘经理说的，我们现在应该是以这个横梁的架设为主了。
钢横梁的架设为主。
就接下来下一阶段。
We are now constructing the next stage of the steel piles and beams. When will the bridge be connected? For the steel beams, starting from now till the end of October, that's one stage, and next year, April and September would be some key points. We estimate that by June the 30th next year, we would have a connection. What about the full operation? About the end of next year. So by that time, this inclusion zone of this bridge building would certainly be turning to a fully connected bridge. Yes. How much time does it take to construct such a steel beam? If it's a section of about 1,500 or 3,300 tons of steel beams at the side of the bridge, it takes about 8 to 12 hours. Compared to traditional beam construction, what is the advantage of our technology? Firstly, since we have only one lift, it reduces a lot of trouble in the material transfer, material warehousing and storage, and also we reduce the other work related to the several rounds of lifting. We have only one lifting. This would reduce the risks involved, and also we could reduce the assembly time on site. In that way, we could reduce the construction time. All of the other time could actually be consumed in the factories for more work. So in this way, we could guarantee that this bridge could be finished on time. Yes. So I want to thank all of the viewers today from offshore. We have visited the largest cross-strait highway and railway bridge, and we also see the difficulties they are suffering from. And finally, we climb up on the tipping point of this bridge. And now this bridge is about to be finished with full connection very soon. And this formerly called exclusion zone will be turned to a fully connected bridge. So thank you for watching. That's the end.